Welcome back, guys. We're finally back up and recording. We ran the first race of the season, which was at Road Atlanta last month, and we had a ton of fun. We were joined by Sam Smith, Travis Sokolsky, Jack Baruth, Mark Baruth, Charlie Baruth. We had Josh Howard with us, Christian Ward, and Matt Farah, and Bozy and I as well. So there was a lot of lessons that were learned. Some things went really well, some not so well, but Bozy's going to touch on those in a little while. We weren't able to do a lot of recording before Road Atlanta. We were really hurrying to get everything prepped and ready to go. One of the things that we were able to accomplish was this new Sparko seat, which I think everyone is happy with. It's just way more comfortable than the previous Ultra Shield seat, which is not very wide at all. You can see in the corner over there. So we also finished the rest of the interior up. We touched it up, refurbed it, and we're really happy with the way it works and looks. Everything just came together very well, but most importantly, we went over everything, and safety is our main concern, so we're happy that everything looks, feels, and sits right.
In Braselton, Georgia, Wednesday night, and Thursday morning we got the car off the trailer for some practice time on track for Charlie. She took it out for various exercises during the day, and what we noticed at one point was she told us that she saw smoke and she smelled some type of gear or diff oil burning. So after inspecting the car, we noticed fluid coming from the diff, and during our preparation for the race, we had safety wired diff plugs and there was no fluid coming from there, but there was some fluid on the right side. It was unclear whether it was coming from the breather or if it was coming from the seal that's for the axle shaft, that where it goes into the diff. So we cleaned that up, and after a while we recognized that the breather looked like it wasn't moving and opening to let the steam or a little bit of extra fluid out, so it had burst through the side seal. So that evening we went back and forth and tried a few different seals. What the parts stores had listed as the correct seal for a 2006 MX-5 was way too small and not even close to fitting. So we ended up taking our old seal out and trying a few different ones, and what we found out later is that the correct seal for this differential is the same seal used in the RX-8 and the FD RX-7. And we were able to find one of those in Marietta, which was about an hour's drive from the track, but we were able to get it together. So I'll show you down here what ended up happening and how we're going to fix it this time. So as you can see here, the diff breather is located at the top of the rear cover, which is on the left side of our image here. And it's basically a small cap that's laid over kind of like almost a banjo style bolt or stud, and it's supposed to raise up. So that didn't raise up while we were practicing, which forced all the fluid to start coming out of the axle seal over here on the right, which is kind of hard to see here, but it is located where the axle enters the differential. So we got that cleaned up and we got the new axle seal in, and that problem was resolved. So what we're gonna do now before the next race is we're gonna remove that breather up there in the corner, and we're gonna replace it with a fitting and put a hose on it so it can vent out as needed outside of the area, so we're not covering our exhaust here with differential fluid again. So we got our diff issue fixed, sealed everything up, and the car was good. We checked over everything else and set the car out to run for practice and qualifying on Friday. During qualifying, Jack was out with the car and he called in. He said that he noticed that the brakes felt like they were dragging. So we brought it in, checked it, and it looked like the calipers didn't have as much play as necessary. We checked manually, tried to return the piston, it was moving, checked the brake lines for binding and bled it, and it looked fine. When we sent him back out, as soon as he got a little bit of heat on it, it started exhibiting the same issue. So that evening we did some testing and we found out that this side was getting more force than the right side during some hard braking events. So what we ended up doing is we took out the ABS fuse for the ABS block, as this car has electronic brake force distribution, which works in conjunction with ABS to distribute brake force to each corner as needed. And it is more kind of analog version of that type of system, so to say, as it doesn't have sensors in each individual wheel. It has some algorithms to calculate it, and it looked like that was causing our issue. We tested with ABS disabled and therefore the electronic brake force distribution disabled, and the car did not exhibit the issues that it exhibited earlier. Of course, because ABS was disabled, it would lock up the front tires a little more quickly than it would with ABS, but the drivers were fine with taking those actions. So once we got our brake issue resolved, or resolved enough to race safely, we got the car out on Saturday morning. Jack started the day, and because we weren't able to qualify, we were at the end of the pack, but during his 84-minute stint, he was able to bring us towards the front, and we were about 2 places out from first in our class. So he ran, and we had a couple more stints during the day, and we were running everybody right around 80 minutes or so, which was kind of the fuel limit of what our instruments were showing. Travis Sokolsky ran right about the 5.5 or 6 hour mark, and he was at about 74 minutes in, and he was gaining speed. He was in second place in class and right around 65 or 67 seconds from taking first. And then he just disappeared. He didn't come around, no radio, and we were a bit frightened because we didn't see him. We were worried that he may have crashed or something else may have happened, but luckily we were able to get a spotter out there to see that he had just pulled off with the car and that he was okay. Once we got Travis back in, we ran some diagnostics and we couldn't find any errors, but fuel was showing at about 4 or 5%. So there was still some fuel left, but we kind of defaulted to the notion that it might have just run out of fuel. So we refilled the car and sent Sam Smith back out in it. At this point, there was right about 80 minutes remaining in the race. So we basically made the decision to say for him to run for a while and to check the readings and then come back in for a splash of fuel if needed. He ran, and with about 2 or 3 minutes left in the race, he ran out of fuel again. So at that point, he was at about the 77 or 78 minute mark, and the dash display to him was showing about 10 or 11%. So there should have been about a gallon or a little over a gallon in the tank. So obviously we had some fuel issues. Once we got the car back in and took a look at it, we figured out that the fuel sender wasn't sending a quality signal over the CAN bus to the MXL Pista. So before we went to the race, we configured the Pista to show us fuel level and to give us warnings when it got down to the 13% mark and to the 10% mark, which it would set an alarm light. And as you can see there in the middle of the screen, the Pista is showing that we have about 87% fuel, which is about 10 gallons. But during the race, when it's in the banks or even in the straights, it wasn't very accurate. And what we found out later is that the signal going over the CAN bus doesn't have any type of dampening. So because it's a float type system, anytime the car is in a bank or experiencing any type of G-force, the floater just floats around. So what we're going to do now is, first of all, we're going to try to implement some dampening to the sender and possibly run the fuel levels sensor as a separate channel into the Pista to prevent those issues. The second thing we're going to do is explore fuel cells, because the 12.7 gallon tank is not enough for us to take the minimum number of pit stops that AER allows. And if we take extra pit stops, that's losing anywhere from 90 seconds to 180 seconds over the other teams in class. So Optimally, we want to have at least 17 gallons and more closer to 19 or 20 to have a really good cushion. So that's one of the things we'll be exploring before the next race. The race finished and Sam got flatbedded back in, and he was not happy, and we weren't really happy, and we were kind of disappointed that we left the race so close to the end. But we pulled the car back in and inspected everything and figured that it's just something that we have to watch for as far as our fuel economy and just to add extra pit stops for now. We inspected the car that evening, and the tires that we ran that day were kind of wearing down, so we decided to swap in the spare tires and wheels that we brought. The spare wheels had just a slightly little different offset than the stock ones, so we put them on and went around to test to make sure that we had tucked the fenders in enough and beat in the inside fender enough so they wouldn't rub. While testing, we heard a squeaking noise, so we brought the car back and started inspecting, and what we found out was that the squeak was coming from our Penske shock back here. And we took the wheel off and examined it, and we found that the top of the shock was covered in oil, and as you can see here, there is a whole bunch of oil on the shock. So we looked at it to see if it was something that was repairable. We checked the pressures. The nitrogen pressures were good, but it was leaking oil. So we put out messages on social media. We started calling around to area shops to see if we can find a replacement for this, possibly an O-ring kit, or just another set of rear shocks. We did find a set at the Skip Barber facility nearby that was on one of their scrap or junkyard cars, but we couldn't reach anybody at Skip Barber, so we kind of gave up on that idea. We hunted for shocks, I would say, until about midnight or a little bit after midnight, but we weren't successful. So we had a team meeting and made a decision to start packing things up because we didn't want to run the shocks in this condition just because we didn't want to put anybody in danger. There probably wasn't a huge chance that they would collapse or, weld themselves together from losing oil, but we don't want to take chances with anybody's safety. And we didn't want to make modifications to the shocks because we didn't know how the car would react, and we just didn't want to ruin the shock. So we packed it up, came back here to North Carolina Sunday, and went over the car. So that's the last part of repairs as they relate to the Road Atlanta race. What we're going to do is remove all 4 shocks, and we're going to take them to a Penske authorized shop here in Mooresville, North Carolina, for them to be inspected, rebuilt, and to be run on a shock dyno. Once that is done, we're going to go over the car and work on our fueling issues, and we now have a tool, factory level tool, to check the ABS and brake force distribution system, so we'll be testing that and making a few small tweaks to the rest of the car. So follow along with us. We should be making some regular updates. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to see more, and we hope to see you guys come around and watch.